Happy Monday. I've got to fix this thing. Well, maybe it's all right. I forgot to turn my notifications off. So everything's popping up because everybody's uploading at 8 o'clock. Everybody's put everything public at 8 o'clock. So this is Monday, June 30th, 2025. It's 8:03 a.m. It's 75 degrees. And I'm on my way to work. It's supposed to be like 90 today, which is average, I think, for this time of year. It's just the way it is. No reason to complain. So we didn't really get much rain, or I don't know that we got any rain right here in town this weekend. I think some places did in the county, but we didn't here. So, I don't know. Okay, we're going to get Tim out of the way, and then I'm going to move on to other stuff. I watched the rant video, or whatever you want to call that video he put up last night about him being so happy he took his Social Security at 62. Well, Tim, I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're happy. And I just hope you're the same way at 82. Oh, that's right. You said you wasn't going to live to 82. We never know. I like to plan that I'm going to live to 102. So that's why I didn't take my Social Security at 62. Why I may not take it till I'm 70. Hadn't decided yet. Because I plan to live a long time. I may not, but I plan to. And that's about all I got to say. He's talked about, he got some pork rinds and he got some cheese. Y'all, he is not doing carnivore. I didn't give my disclaimer. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just rambling on, talking from my perspective and my experience with my own weight issues, dieting, and all that good stuff. I'm speaking from my experience and from my observation. I don't believe he's doing carnivore. I believe he's doing half-aced. I know, I try not to say bad words on my channel, but every once in a while I might. But usually I'm repeating what someone else said. Anyway, I think he's doing it half-assed. That's A-C-E-D. I don't think that he can do it strictly. Okay, I'm not saying that the cheese is not carnivore. In some people that does carnivore, they don't do cheese. I'm not saying that you cannot eat the pork rinds, but I don't think you're supposed to eat a whole bag at one time. That's from my observation and my experience. That if you do, when you start piling on, a bunch of hamburger and steaks and stuff, I know that there's some doctors that disagree with me, that they'll say you can eat whatever you want, but I'm going to 100% respectfully disagree that you cannot. I'm not going to say you can't work up to eating what you want, as long as it's meat. But at the beginning, you cannot do that. You've got to let your body acclimate to what you're doing. And you need to keep your calories at a certain level. That's my opinion. And I don't need anybody to tell me any different. I know there's different opinions. I'm just saying that's my opinion. And I also like to say that I don't think, in my honest opinion, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian or anything of that sort. But from my opinion or my perspective, I like to talk to doctors, medical professionals who are who are not set on one particular diet or one particular way of eating. I want one to realize that we're all different. And we are. We're all different. We all got to this heavier weight different ways. And I just like people to have open minds. That's what I'm saying. I like people to be open-minded when it comes to eating. And when you're trying to be strict, when you're an addict, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game when it comes to being an addict, because you almost do have to restrict yourself. Not saying it's right, but if you want to get yourself from being an addict, you first have to restrict yourself. Not saying you can't add it back in later on, but as I said, not a doctor, not a dietitian. I'm not a therapist. I'm just speaking from my experience. And like I say, don't need to be told that I'm not a doctor. I know that. And I say it. All right, we're going to move on from that because that's just getting me in more trouble. Okay, tomorrow is July 1st. And if you'll notice, lots of people do Vlogmas in July. And I know that some people don't like the word Vlogmas. And that's okay. I'm not sure I like it either. That's why I called it Vlogmas. So I'm not going to say I'm going to film every day in July, but I may do the hashtag Vlogmas in July or Vlogmas in July. Just to maybe gain some new viewers. Now, I will say I watched somebody yesterday that was the opposite of Tim. He is also a carnivore channel. He's lost a lot of weight, but he's, he's stalled and he's trying to, he had gained a little bit back, not much, but just a little bit. So he's trying to get back on the wagon, so to speak. He's also trying to grow his channel, but he's wanting to grow his channel the right way. He told his audience yesterday, I just was floored, that if you weren't going to watch his videos, there was no need to subscribe. Anyway, his wife had done a recipe for a pot roast. It wasn't really a pot roast, it was a pan roast. And it has over 1 million views, and he said he gained like 15,000 subscribers from that video. But because they're not really a cooking channel, his ratios or analytics were not good, because he was still only getting like 3,000 to 5,000 views. He had 50-some thousand subscribers. So his analytics were down because he wasn't getting the views, because people subscribe and then they never watch again. So I could see his point, but I would never say that, because YouTube looks at everything. And if people are subscribing, even though they may not be watching as much, you'll look in the analytics and the algorithm will still show your channel to other people. And I know y'all don't care about that, but I just found it interesting. All right, now, so we talked about Vlogmas in July. I think that a lot of you like my story about the restaurant situation in Charleston, because I'm sure a lot of you have been to Charleston or go to Charleston on a regular basis. I'm not sure. But, I'm sure that Charleston's not the only one that has that problem. Being on the coast, I'm sure there's a lot of restaurants, especially in Myrtle Beach, that they'll claim their seafood is fresh and it's not. Especially some of them buffets. That's just my opinion. But as I always say, be careful what you're putting in your mouth. Ask the questions. Just like if you go to a really nice restaurant and, they're cooking it right then, ask them, can you fix that without seed oils? Ask them what oil they're using, because we've learned that seed oils are not the best. And I think most people would agree with that, but that's just, Not gonna say it again. Okay, I started watching the Waterfront on Netflix. It was filmed in Wilmington, and I've only watched maybe the first 15-20 minutes, but I'm loving it already because I love seeing Wilmington and seeing places I know. The cast seems pretty good. I love the style of the women they're wearing because it's a coastal style, and I love that style. If I was a lot thinner, I might wear that style, but I'm not, so I can't really pull it off right now. Maybe one day I will. And just thought I'd share that with you if you have Netflix and you haven't started watching that. But I don't know if it's going to be great, but it looks interesting. It was released on June 19th, I believe, so it's only been out like a week or two. And as I said, it has Topher Grace, so it has some good actors. And what else did I watch? I know the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders is back on. I haven't started watching that because that's one I'll binge. I'll watch it all together. And I'm not watching that no more of the reboot of Sex and the City. And just like that, they've lost me. And it's just ruining the first part for me. I don't want the political stuff down my throat. Even if it was the way I feel, I don't want it down my throat. Just give me a series where they're out here living their life, supposedly, with romance and just things going on. I don't care politically how they think, what they think, and all that stuff. Just don't care. And that's about it. So I'm going to work because I think I've talked long enough. I know last week my videos were long. Didn't really have a lot to say. I did watch, Blind Views and Darlin, Jay. There's some others that put some videos out. So I watched all them. The only video I watched of Tim's was the one I just told you about. I didn't watch any of the others. Honestly, I only watched it for this video for me to talk about. I think I'm just about over him. And that's all I got to say. All right, talk to y'all later. Love you. Bye.
Jump into the car on a Friday night. I wanna drive with you.